Nimki dodem, waganaksing and doda bendaquis. Minkigan datis, o washtanong odena, jawanong odena, beshik at nguis. Manda namewen, ensa gishap, kishem nado, migwech manda Anishinaabe mwen, gamishyong, na demoshnong nangwa wene da Anishinaabe myong. Minawa ke wizak toyang manda Anishinaabe mwen. Wid kinomago yinget ke ni jansananek minawa no shenanek. Mi manda eshikwe toyang nangwa. Miigwech kishem nado minawa ke manadok natmago yang. Now, miswe. Seam this bag because it doesn't have a seam on either side. So it started at the bottom and it's a continuous weave that's going around. And I grab each bundle. This is Wigup Onagek, or Nimki dodem wasan Dishnakas. Bindigin and Janabiga gaying, Waganaksing and Dota Bendaquis Mumpi. Now, my name is, in English, it means light all around. And you're in my studio called Enjanabiga Gaying, the place where we weave. And I live and work here with the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians on the reservation here. And right now, I am working on a basswood bark utility bag. This basswood fiber, this whole bag comes from one tree. And to make the fiber, it takes me about 3 months. And the dyes that I use today are contemporary, but that's only because it takes about 3 days per color and they're not as bright as these. The cordage or the string is also called sabap, and it comes from the fiber of the tree. The bag, after the fiber is made, the bag starts here and goes, and this string, nish sabapins, bim shkobidon manda, bitoin manda, wiggle, and it goes around and around and around these two strings. And it's called twining. This action that is repeated over and over can happen on this bag or on other bags that later, when Europeans came, they brought yarns and things. But it has no seam because it goes around and around in a circle. And that's why it's hanging the way that it is, so that I can just turn it and keep going around. I keep it damp. It's very light, it's very lightweight, but there's lots of fiber, and so it makes it really strong. Can't really see through it, so. And when that's done, some of them have color and some of them do not. This one is space twining. This one is alternate space twining. No color, but you can see the design is different. Also all basswood. And this is bulrush done the same way, but with hemp string. And this is just showing off how small you can get it. This is also with hemp, an alternate space twine. This one is, oops, this one is not alternate space twine. It's not going back and forth, but we still, and it's almost done. The very top, it'll be braided. And if we
and I am here today assisting with this interview, and I am a professor and a curator at Michigan State University, and in that position I also head the state program on traditional arts. So periodically I will be interjecting some questions and asking Wasan a little bit about what she's doing. And so I'm very happy to be here and be a witness to this and a participant in it. Thank you.
Now, so the selvage edge or the top of this bag will end up, this bag will end up like this one. This one has no color. They're twisted and braided and tucked down inside of here, and then there's no straps on this bag. But this is all made from wigabatek, from basswood tree. And then the basswood bark is called wigo onagek. And I go into the forest and find that particular tree and have a conversation with the tree and tell the tree what's going to happen, because I'm not going to take the life of that tree. Rather, I'm going to just borrow some of the bark. And so the trees that gave this bark are still alive and enjoying sunshine and the weather and the change of the seasons. But they'll have a big long scar. I make a cut after I make my prayers at the very bottom of the tree and lift that bark up and pull it until the big strip comes off. And here's a small one here until it looks like this. Then I peel the outer bark from the inner bark, and then I process it. This part right here, this is the inner bark, and it has lots of little papery pieces inside of there. And I have to boil it, and I use hardwood ash from a fire. And the ash contains lye that I need to help break this down. And so I boil it in wood ash until it comes out, and I separate it into pieces like this one here. Then I may continue to cook it and take care of it, because I can start separating these fibers after it's been, this has been soaking and boiling. After I boiled it, I soaked it for like 3 months. In the summer, we live in a place where there's lots of natural springs, and I think that's why it takes my basswood so long to ret. It's called retting, which is a controlled rot. And after you work the fiber for so long, it will start to change and become softer and softer. And then I'll put this in the water and continue to work it. And then after all of that is done, excuse me, I'll grab this. I then look for the nice soft pieces and the thinnest, nicest pieces like this. And that's what I spin on my leg right here these two pieces to make cordage. Lots and lots of cordage. And then I'll roll it up and use it as I need it. So sometimes I use the Wigabatik cordage.
The light, please. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Sometimes I use the Wigabatik or the basswood cordage, and sometimes as I get older, that's a lot of spinning. So sometimes I use hemp. I'm all for using the natural materials of the earth. So if we have a good purpose for it, that's a good thing for me.
Where do you get your hemp from?
I just, I would like to get some of Winona's hemp.
Yes,
I would like to, but she's just now figuring out how to make the fiber.
Okay.
And how to get things going. But I got my dibs, and she's well aware of what I want to do.
And what about the basswood? Is it difficult to find trees now? I mean, is there anything attacking them like the emerald ash borer and with the black ash?
Fortunately, basswood is readily available, and you can peel the bark at any season. It'll peel in the summer, winter, and fall. It is a very light wood, but it has a strong root system. So a lot of times basswood, when they get big, they get blown over, and from the trunk will be 8 or 9 little basswoods coming out of there, and that's the one we harvest, is when the bark is in smooth bark stage, not when it's in rough bark, so you can pull it and be able to peel it back and forth. So basswood, fortunately, is readily available. Unfortunately, Wisagok or black ash is not doing so well in our area. It got hit really hard in the places that I would go to in the swamp. About 6 or 7 years ago, when I got out of the car, one of those emerald ash borer that come from Asia landed on my shoulder, and I knew it was over. By the end of that summer, most everything was infected and well on its way out. So I kind of switched my gears. I do still make baskets. I enjoy weaving and making the same body motions that my ancestors before me had made, even though I may not know their name, because I'm using the same techniques and the same materials, harvested in the same way, with love and respect. It makes me feel a kinship and a aliveness to the techniques that have been left behind for us to discover and sometimes rediscover. And probably one of the biggest epiphany, I guess, I've had since I've been weaving since I was 8 or 9 years old, and spent my life doing natural fiber art, is how much the material itself will allow for certain things to be done and some things that cannot be done. So the trees itself is a teacher, and it teaches me. The plants and the fiber and the whole process teaches me all the time, which is why I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and it helps bring that alive for myself and children that have yet to be born and the generation we're in now. Different on one side or the other. I did notice there are some slight variations, and I believe that has to do with the different realms that we dabble in our lives, things that we understand, the great unknown, the afterlife, and things like that. Well, we have beings that live in other realms, and sometimes these colors and designs help recognize them. For this, anytime I see a diamond, that's about community, especially if it's a red one. But this one is more like the more like the water. I call this one fall, Dawage, because it's the blue of the sky, and then the colors that the trees were changing, and it was just no particular meaning other than just separate designs, and thinking about fall and the sky and the trees and how that connects us to the underworld and to the sky.
This seems like you're now stepping out and making it a Wasan design. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's really awesome. For one, the color. The colors are not muted, and they're really vibrant and way out there. I switched from the brand that I was using with black ash basketry to another type of dye, and it's real vibrant and colorful like that. But to be able to, for my hands to go through the motions that people before me have already done, was their way of teaching me the techniques that I can elaborate on. And truly, 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 I still believe, I firmly believe that the artist is the only one that can really interpret their piece. Other people will get a feeling about it, and if the artist is done well, then they're getting what they wanted. But really the artist, so I spend a lot of time looking at the designs and understanding what our lives were like at that point. Not a lot of vehicles driving around. Some of the last bulrush weavers were around in the 50s. That's pretty much.
In this area?
In this area. That's pretty much the last of them.
And what were some of the things that bulrush weaving was used for? I mean, bags certainly, but what other things?
Also, bulrush, of course, are some people in Europe call them cattails. Cattail bulrush. It might be one or the other. Cattail is a long, flat, many leaves with the brown seed at the top. And bulrush is a long stalk with a very small leaf under the water that you never see unless you pick it, and a reddish brown flower seed at the top. And they grow close to the shoreline. There's several different species of bulrush. I don't know the scientific names of them. I know what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for stuff that is long and thin. And so bulrush is used as an insulation. It's used because it's a pocket of air. They're almost like giant porcupine quills. It's an airtight vessel until I process it so that I can get water all the way through it. But it's still an airtight vessel. It's like a sponge on the inside. And after processing the bulrush for the year, I'll sun dry them, boil them, and dry them again, and then size them, and then dye them, and then dry them again. But once they're dry, the good news is they store very well. Probably about 3 to 5 years. I wouldn't want to keep anything longer than that without weaving it, so it has strength of something next to it. But the bulrush mats were used both as an inner wall of our dwellings and as flooring material for our where we live, as well as bundle wraps. You put sacred things inside of there and wrap them in what we call the dog days, which was the days before European, and our lives were intertangled with dog. They help carry some of our burden by hooking up a couple of sticks on a frame, and they put these mats on that so that you could put the kids on top of that and then drag it for, you know, that's what the women would But if you had a nice big dog, you might be able to take some of them as well. They don't weigh very much. They're light as air, but they offer a lot of protection and insulation. And so designs on there would be multifaceted depending on what the purpose was, what it was being put together for.
What is the lifespan of a mat? Like, will they last for 40 years, 100 years? What is the oldest piece that you have ever seen?
Oh, I don't, you know what, it's stuff that's right around 100, a little more than that. It's kind of strange because pieces that go in museums have to be cared for in a humidity-controlled environment. With natural fiber, at some point a decision has to be made. When does it get a drink to offer more life so it'll live longer? The color and the patina will change in the color when you add water to some fibers, but it also adds strength. Water is strength. And these pieces will soak it up and make them strong again, and then they, like baskets, will creak and make all kinds of noises when you give them a drink because they're stretching out and, you know, remembering that they were once a tree and now a basket. And then, so in the natural environment where it's rehydrated and hydrated all the time, I would imagine, and being used, you know, that a nice mat might be handed down to a daughter and held on to for a while and prized for a while until finally it's time to retire them. And you pass that information. Mat making and weaving with bulrushes, which I'll explain some of that, is never been just one single person doing that. It was always done as a group activity. And we would use our natural environment for the moisture. And so weaving in the early morning and the late evening when the natural dew comes out, it will moisten up your weaving, and then you can sit down and really get a lot of work done very fast when you have so many hands that are all skilled in the same way to get those done. But nowadays I'm weaving smaller pieces because I'm weaving alone, and not many people able to spend the time to hone their weaving skills like I have. I've done this my whole life.
Who have you taught this to?
Oh my goodness. Mostly lots of Native people on both sides of the border, both in Canada and in the United States, all the way from California to Manitoulin and Ottawa. But Native people, mostly, as I learned from my mother, and she learned from a Kickapoo woman and was in class with another woman from this community. And my mom, I started weaving when I was 8 or 9 with yarn, finger weaving, sashes and belts and things like that. And I found out that I understood that. My fingers in my head understood what was happening, and it came very easy for me. And since that time, I found out that it's more important to teach about the process than the actual finishing the piece. Because the real gift isn't the finished piece. The real gift is the process. And that process is going out and recognizing the day and recognizing the plan and slowing life down enough to listen to what creation is saying, and then start from there. So although the bag will be beautiful, And all of that, what I get to carry with me is the process that helped put that together. And so that's really the essence of what I'm trying to share.
Go ahead.